Welcome to another edition of The Conversation here at the Dakotan. I'm Jonathan Starr. Today it is an honor and a pleasure to be joined by the chairwoman of the Republican Party here in North Dakota, Sandi Sanford. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I've
Yes.
been wanting to be here over the last few months, so I'm glad to be here.
Yes, absolutely. And thanks for making the drive up to Minot.
Yeah, it's a nice day to drive.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So this is something that perhaps came out of the blue, perhaps not. You've been in the position for a while. How has it been going for you? You've been in there just over a year.
Right.
How have you felt the first year's gone?
I would say that it has taken me a good 12 months to kind of get my hands wrapped around the logistics of the entire organization.
Right.
But just to go through the paces of going through, the district reorgs,
right.
A state convention. And of course, as we approach, it's a presidential election year.
Yep.
You only see those every 4 years. So this is, it's been an incredible journey, and I'm learning every single day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you were not a stranger to politics per se, because your husband had served with Governor Doug Burgum.
Correct.
And I say this jokingly, but did you make him step down at the end of 2023 so you could become chair of the party and there not be any conflicts?
Yeah, not at all. Of course, I'm not an elected official.
Right.
This is, an organization, and I'm elected by a state committee and
right.
Made up of, an executive committee and a state committee, 47 districts. No, there was, I have been involved in, my district in the past. So I had been involved in some state party work on a
right.
district level. Politics, it's in our family. We've always been part of, we love North Dakota.
Yep.
We're steadfast Republicans. He definitely didn't step down so that I could, pursue being the chair of the party.
Oh, it sounds like a good story, though.
Well, it would, yeah. It makes for a nice little twist and a nice narrative. No, I saw, concern, but not concerns, maybe concerns, but. I've wanted to get involved in when I was a second lady of North Dakota. I serve. I wanted to serve.
Right.
I come from Western North Dakota. I come from a really large family. I come from a ranch family. My dad was in the oil industry, and I have,
yep.
He farmed with my grandpa. But Western North Dakota, we're used to chipping in. When you show up to any kind of gathering, you just kind of get to work. You roll up your sleeves and you get to work. That's what I was used to. So when my husband became, was elected with Governor Doug Burgum as the lieutenant governor, and I was second lady of North Dakota, I would show up to events, and I was used to just kind of jumping in. Sometimes, cleaning a table
right.
or visiting with people or getting people coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw needs, even at the GOP. And I've done work in nonprofit and as an executive and in healthcare. And I knew I had the skill set
right.
to run the GOP.
Yeah.
Whether it was the executive director or even as the chair, I knew I had that skill set. I knew I had the experience working in districts in the past and with campaigns. So I knew what the GOP did. I knew I could do the job, and I knew I could do it well. Yeah.
And it's interesting perspective that you gained from being inside the GOP as a second lady. I was trying to mix both
right.
of them as being the second lady. And then going and stepping into that role, you get to see it from a whole different world than perhaps the district chairs that maybe one of them would eventually be nominated as a state chair or something like that. Has that perspective helped as you have gone to work these last 12 months and longer now?
Absolutely. It is entirely, the GOP is, on an island, and it's absolutely separated from the legislative branch,
right.
and then you've got the executive branch. And Brent was, he was the mayor of a community before he became part of the executive,
okay.
Office.
Yep.
It is entirely different. This organization, is set aside from those Republican entities. And I'm kind of going full circle right now.
Yeah, that's true. Interesting.
Yeah.
So take a step back. We jumped right into the position, but let's talk about you. You've been in North Dakota all your life?
Yeah, I was born and raised in North Dakota, in Western North Dakota, and I'm a fourth generation North Dakotan. Brent and I have been married 30 years, wow. and we have 3 children, and we left North Dakota for a time frame, and moved back to North Dakota. We were living in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
Brent was the COO of a large Transwest Trucking, a large company. And we moved back, and that was so that he could run his family Ford dealership
Right.
in Western North Dakota, in Wofford City. So, we moved back. We're the oldest. Both of us are the oldest of in our families. And we're committed to not just our family, but the state.
Yeah.
And everything that it stands for.
It's interesting how North Dakota catches a hold of people. You move away, but you can't stay away from North Dakota.
You can't stay away. And I think that it's been wonderful to see people move in from other parts of the country and fall in love with not just the state, but I think most of all, I think you fall in love with the people.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So out of the gate, you faced some pressure, and that's just because, and we'll talk about it, the Republican Party is a very, well, from an outside perspective, I'll say it's a little bit divided. You may not agree with that, but there's definitely, it seems like at least two factions, maybe more that like to talk to each other a lot. And so you got pegged as being in the far right Republican side of the Republican Party.
Sure.
And that's whatever that means. And that's what you are, right? And I say that kiddingly.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I grew up in a Republican family, and I'm a steadfast Republican.
Right.
I'm the same Republican today in 24 that I was in 2020, 2016.
Yep.
And so there has been, a narrative that, that really coined me as a far right. Did you say?
I use the term far right, the extremist, whatever are different ones that have come out.
Sure. And I would say, I'm conservative. I'm a conservative. I'm unapologetically conservative.
Right.
I'm unapologetically pro-life. And those are my values. Those are my strong family values and the values that I live by. I was the same before I ran for this position as I am today. But I think I was coined in regards to that because, it was during COVID. I was the second lady of North Dakota. And at the time, I did come out. I have a healthcare background, and I did come out and verbalize my discontent with nursing home residents being locked in nursing home facilities.
Right.
And I was verbal about that. What transpired from that was backlash, of course, and notoriety. Some people it was disrespectful possibly, but as a healthcare, I was speaking as a North Dakotan, but as a granddaughter and a daughter, and I wanted to advocate for people that I love.
Absolutely.
So what transpired from that is I assisted my sister-in-law, and she has a PhD in nursing, and we co-authored what was called the Essential Caregiver Bill in North Dakota. That was passed in 21 during the legislative session.
Okay.
What has come from that, there were 19 states that passed essential caregiver bills, much like North Dakota. And I'm now working on what's called the Essential Caregivers Act. Wow. And that is now on a federal level. Wow. And Congressman Tenney of New York State introduced that last year.
That's incredible.
And so I'm working on that. So, I came out in regards to that. I also was a verbal about masking. Yeah. Again, I had a healthcare background. I looked at, I considered, an earthly virus, and I considered the fact no, I'm not going to mask my children. Right. I'm not going to mask my children. As a respiratory therapist, it didn't seem the best thing. It didn't seem clinical. It didn't have the studies to back it. I said no.
So something you said in there, and there's a lot of interesting points you made.
Okay.
But starting out with, in 2016, you were the same person you are now, as far as your conservative values. And I think it's an interesting topic. I've brought it up before, but of just looking in North Dakota at the Republican and what it is. I'm walking back all the way to late 1900s, 1990, that time frame, and then looking forward to today. And of course, some of that I don't have as much knowledge depth on, but looking at the progression of the Democratic and Republican parties. And a question that I've asked others, and I'll ask you, is do you think in the current state of where we're at, the people that we have, that there's Republicans now that in the 1990s would have been Democrats?
Well, I'm not entirely, I mean, possibly.
It's a very speculative question, I get.
Yeah.
But my point of it is that there's this move to go, and for me, it comes back to morals. I feel like that morals are getting really depleted in politics. Less of a value placed on them, and I know that brings in a whole another discussion that can be had. But it feels like that's getting really pushed down. And what's happening is, if you stand for something like that, moral values, then you do get pushed into more of an extreme state. Well, I'm sorry, and abortion's one that's very close to the Republican platform, but I'm for these things, and so then you're not understanding. Well, it's like these are some of the same values that have been part of the party for years,
right? And
now there's an extremist title that or very right wing or whatever it might be title that's placed on it, and I think on the other hand, and now I'm doing too much talking here. You have on the left where there's a lot of things are pushing in, and it's pushing out some of the people that were, hey, you know what, I'm either way, and that's becoming what perhaps maybe is a future other Republican Party in some regards.
Yeah, so I do hear you. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I do believe that we're seeing different factions in the Republican Party. That is for sure. But when you look back at the Republicans versus the Democrats have always been for more government and policy, and the Republicans have been for less government.
Right.
Dems have been for more laws. Republicans have been less. Dems spend more money. Republicans no, fiscally conservative. Dems against capitalism. So those are some of the foundations of the party. You can go even further back and get back to some cultural differences between Dems and Republicans. And we have to look at history. We have to be very clear that it was the Republican Party that assisted to eradicate even slavery.
Yeah.
And I think that history can speak for itself, but the Republican Party fought for people and for the right to partake.
Right.
And so, I mean, that was some of the first cultural wars.
Yeah.
And now we're here today. You addressed 1990. Oh, I don't know if I want to go back to 1990. That's the year I graduated from high school. But let's not look back, and let's start here. And there's cultural concerns. But I have to say, when you talk to reasonable people, even moderates or left-leaning Republicans or Dems are just as concerned about those as I am when you really get down to it.
Right.
They really are. We all want safety and family, and even if you're a Dem in the state of North Dakota, if you're here, you believe in a smaller state and family values and things like that. But yeah, there's cultural concerns in the Republican Party, and because of that, we've identified within our own supermajority. We've identified. I don't think we always say there's only two. It's like a split right down the middle.
Yeah.
I do not agree with that. In the last year, I have seen many different factions within this large umbrella, and I talk about that a lot. That's where I'm kind of a parrot. But there's many different factions within a large tent.
Do you think, in this whatever, I'll just ask this question. Do you think that if there was a stronger Democratic Party, and I'm going to talk about that because it feels like they are surging right now, but do you think if there's a stronger Democratic Party where votes for a Senate spot is going 52-48, more tighter races like that it would change those factions a little bit?
Oh yes, for certain. And in the state of North Dakota, we don't have party registration. I believe we're one of the only states in the country. I think that would solve some of our problems as well that lead to discussions like this.
Interesting. We will move topics to one that is, I think it's interesting, and I think it's one that is potentially becoming a problem for the Republican Party. In recent years, there have been a few Republicans that have found their way into the news in some unpleasant ways. And I say recent years is probably something that both sides have had, if you went and looked back decades. Not really going to name many of the names, but there's a lot of DUIs that come up. There's other charges that have been brought. Do you see if this continues, where there's been at least 2, and I believe there's more than that. But so far this year, if this continues, do you think it becomes an image problem for the Republican Party in North Dakota?
Absolutely, and it has been something that we've had to deal with. In one case, we have inherited. We've seen scenarios that we're now dealing with today.
Right.
That were years in the making.
Yeah.
And so we've inherited those, and then of course there's always new ones that pop up. I mean, people are people, and
it has to be understood.
Well, and regardless of even party, people make mistakes.
Yep.
But I will tell you, we have to expect more from our lawmakers.
Yeah.
These are whether they are Democrat or Republican, these are the individuals that make the laws that they impose on the citizens of North Dakota.
Right. And
of course your law enforcement carries it out.
Yeah.
And so, but no, we have to expect more from our lawmakers, and we're forgiving. We certainly are forgiving, but there are certain things that we cannot be tolerating.
Right.
We just can't. But at the end of the day, people make the decisions. It's the people within those districts that have to, if they have a lawmaker that has stepped outside and broken the law, those districts have a method to take care of that and vote that individual out.
Right.
So it's, but as citizens,
Yeah. So as a chair.
Yeah.
Or, as a chairwoman.
Yeah.
And when you see these people that do get in trouble with DUI, whatever it might be,
right.
And then they get revoted in, how do you approach that? Is that something where you're like, all right, it's no longer my concern, it may be a concern, but it's no longer my worry, I don't need to be needing to address it. How do you approach something like that when the people do go ahead and give them that mark of approval by voting them in? I have not seen that scenario.
I have not seen that at this point.
Yeah.
But we did have an incident where, there was an incident, and what we did as far as the organization of the ND GOP is we provided the chairman of those districts with the information and methods in order to take care of that scenario at home.
Right.
I also want to note that their colleagues, the Legislative Assembly, whether it's the House or the Senate, they also do have methods amongst their colleagues in order to take care of somebody, a lawmaker that has stepped outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting to see the long-term effect of that. Hopefully it's something that gets cleaned up, because it's not something that you enjoy seeing. I'll make a joke about it, but for a while it's like, man, you know how in the news there's something crazy that happens, you're like, oh, that must have been a Florida man. Well, for a while it was like, oh no, there's a DUI. Is that another? There was a lot of them that were happening very close together. I think something else that plays into it though, and this is serious, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on it, is obviously term limits is going in place, right? And you'll see some of these things happen. I know that there's the deal with long-term lawmaker, and that's a completely different problem in my opinion.
Right.
Every once in a while there'll be an experienced lawmaker that'll make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times it's these young ones that are just in office and that have not lived life.
Sure.
And they're making mistakes that are not great for the image of the Republican Party.
Right.
But they're also under 30 perhaps sometimes. And so they're making life mistakes, and there's never a right time to make a mistake such as a DUI, but there are probably more times in life that you're more prone to that.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see perhaps there's more education or something that needs to happen with these young lawmakers that are coming into office?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's the key. You're absolutely right. I mean, statistically, there's probably an age where, yes, they're going to step out and make all these mistakes. And you want people with wisdom and maturity.
Right.
I mean, we do not want, you don't want people that can't run the state to run the state, right? Is that correct? And hey, we have a platform. We are claiming to be the party of values, and then you have lawmakers who are under our brand who are not holding up those same values.
Right.
That is an incredible problem for the party. I mean, we are having to really pay the price, you know, for everybody Republican that steps out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's really not fair to the party, the organization itself.
Right.
And so we do have to put some sort of, there has to be methods, stronger methods where we can deal with it. I do believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to skip this question. We'll go somewhere else. The ND GOP has been ruling party for many years. I think last time somebody in the higher offices was 2018, when you had Heidi Heitkamp.
Okay.
But since then, it's been the Republican Party that has been the ruling party in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Do you worry, and this is transitioning out of that conversation, but do you worry that those image problems is going to be maybe a small catalyst that gets a ball rolling where the Democratic Party is able to surge back very strongly because citizens become just upset with that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's the discussion, and that's kind of like the threat. I mean, that you hear every now and then. Oh, yeah. I mean, people are going to choose their candidates. They are. There absolutely could be a flip, and we certainly could lose what's called the supermajority.
Yep.
And yet, let's just be clear. The Democrats have never been more different than the Republicans than they are today. I mean, if you are going to draw the line in the sand, I mean, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
Especially as a North Dakotan.
Right.
Do you really want to go to that party?
Yeah.
I mean, it's extreme. It's never been so extreme. As we look at Camala Harris running, you know, for president, I mean, you could just look at her budget plan. And, you know, even I think I can't remember if it was a New York Post. I mean, somebody, they referred to it as a communist, you know, plan with what price, kind of limiting your prices, price gauging, they called it.
Yep.
And let's just look at the cultural politics of the Democratic Party. It's incredibly dangerous for anybody in the state of North Dakota to align with it.
Right.
It really isn't. It's not family friendly.
Right.
And, you know, when they talk about the push, you know, transitioning children, I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. So if you are a Republican, even a moderate or even a leaning left Republican, and you just go Dem, I mean, it's really on you.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
not a worry, not a concern.
It's not in North Dakota. I mean, I can see the risk.
Right.
And yet it's just they've never been so extreme.
Right. Yep. You're right. It's interesting to see that gap. And I think that goes back to the prior conversation of just looking at what party you are a part of and seeing the gap widen between the two parties.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I go back to the 1990s is because that was Bill Clinton was the last Democratic president that at least at one point, I guess maybe some of the others at one point, but early on in his term or during his campaign, he switched his view on abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, it's been a very strong strong for abortion view. And now and maybe one day we'll have a conversation with them to talk about it specifically, but the Democratic Party is almost just, if you are against abortion, you have no place in our party, which is an interesting thing. And I know that that's always been a part of the Republican platform since abortion has been a thing. But when you go and you start making strong moral things, it becomes impossible for people to associate with you, and it widens that gap. And I think that's something that is a concern with the two-party system, which is beyond the scope of today's conversation, but it is interesting for sure.
Well, it's not even cultural. I mean, we can talk about, you know, just straight even policy. I mean, Camala Harris, I mean, she wanted to ban fracking.
Right.
You know, she's coming after, you know, I mean, North Dakota owns energy.
It does.
Again, extreme Democrat policy. I mean, what's going to happen? You know, people should be concerned about energy in our grid system and fossil fuels and coal and even wind on that matter. But, you know, she had discussed, and I believe she's changed her position on that, but that would have been just an incredible disaster,
right? You
know, for her to jump into the fracking and to try to ban it.
So when you look at the Democratic Party in North Dakota, and I know we're here to talk about Republicans, but hey, give me one more question on this. When you look at the Democratic Party here in North Dakota, do you look at and it gets right now. There's the races going on, and I was at an event in Minot recently, and they introduced Kelly Armstrong as the next governor of North Dakota. I'm like, well, technically not yet, but he has a good chance, right? Because he still has to get his votes.
That's how I introduce him as well.
Yeah, nice.
I mean, I have not introduced him, but that's how I refer to him as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, do you look at those races? First off, how do you look at them? And then with that, do you, as far as like if there was concern, do you look at them based off doesn't sound like the party, so do you look at it based off the person, like, hey, this is actually a person that may be moderate enough that we should at least be a little more concerned, or do you not even look at it that way?
I look at, well, the governor's race itself, I feel really confident and I feel really good about where we're at as far as the Republican Party and with our candidate, Kelly Armstrong. Yeah. I mean, Congressman Armstrong, he's ready to come home, and I'm no doubt he is just all over the state. North Dakota loves him statewide. Right. I feel really confident.
You can feel his love for North Dakota as he's been campaigning. Oh my goodness. It's been huge.
And he does. He loves North Dakota, and he loves the people of North Dakota, he's ready to come home. He's ready to jump in and do the job. So I feel good there, and I feel good about all the Republican races. I really do. There's some districts that if we drill down to a district level, I think we have identified some high risk districts that we need to be focusing on. But when I look at the Senate race, I feel really good. I feel really good about Kevin Kramer. Right. I am watching Christensen, and she's got some boots on the ground. She's trying to pull in some out of state money. I believe Senator Kramer is solid there. But I do see her messaging. I mean, she is really trying to pull to the middle. She's trying to pull that middle person in. Right. And so I'm watching, we're watching them all really closely. Yeah. Julie Fedorchuk's doing a great job. I do believe we'll see her in D.C. I'm feeling good about all of them. I think it's the districts that I'm
most concerned.
Kind of watching a few districts. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Well, that's an interesting conversation in itself, but I'm going to ask you this. So there's a few things that are on the ballot this year, ballot measures, and I know that these probably don't directly affect you as a Republican chairperson, but we'll talk about them. One of them is age limits, and that's an interesting one. Yeah. Obviously, we had term limits. We have term limits now, and we'll see how that it's going to affect the Republican Party. Right. But the age limits, pulled up ages. This is an interesting stat. Average age of the people signing the Declaration of Independence, 44. Okay. Way younger. And it was mentioned by Bill Clinton at the Democratic National Convention that, and it shocked me because I didn't think about it. Okay. He's like, talk about his age and stuff. And he's like, and just to let you know, I'm still younger than Donald Trump. And you're like, wow, that is an interesting thing, because it feels like, but what was interesting to me was not, oh, wow, Donald Trump's old, people shouldn't vote for him. That's people's choice. But what was interesting to me is think about that. That was 20 years ago that he was president, 30 years ago that he was president. And then you have George Bush, and George Bush was a young man when he was president. And then you had Barack Obama, and he was a young man when he was president. And then you have Donald Trump, and even Donald Trump in 2016, he was older, but he was late 60s, maybe early 70s. He was, so early 70s is perhaps starting to get, sorry, some people will be offended by that, but for a position, perhaps maybe it's getting a little bit old. But the point of the question is, we've had a lot of younger people that are in what some would say the prime, that 40 to 60 age, where you're in the prime of your leadership time. And so do you see age limits being a good thing? First off, that's where I want to start. Yeah, I mean, let's just back up to term limits, and I know we have to deal with them. I don't, these initiated measures. I want people to be able to decide. I want North Dakotans to be able to to put these little bumpers on. I'm not a great fan. I'm really not a great fan. I think what because we're trying to put everybody into a box. Yep. And I do believe that there's these initiatives that come in that end up as measures.
there's always this little faction that's trying to control something, and that's what's driven by.
Right.
A lot of times it comes from out of state,
Yep.
out of state interest groups, and as a North Dakotan, I'm a Republican, and I've got a little independence in me, and I don't appreciate the out of state influencers. I really don't.
Yeah.
It's different if North Dakotans, are just kind of chewing on it themselves, but that's not the reality.
Right.
So the age limit, no, I do. It's something that I really can't appreciate. A measure like that, I personally can't appreciate it. But of course, you let the people decide,
Right.
And then you deal with it as a party.
So, do you feel that those bumpers or limits,
Baby bumpers,
yeah,
yeah,
do you feel like they go against the Republican platform as far as limited government?
yeah,
And so now we're
yeah.
going and imposing government on who you can vote for.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as limited and government and limited policy, and I think we're starting to put up a lot of walls and
Okay.
a lot of bumpers, and if we're going to be the party of less and let people decide, what are we doing?
Right.
What is this?
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems, we overuse the word populism, but it kind of seems like this populist, whatever it is. Again, it's out of state and it's coming in and it's affecting us on a state level. It's hard for me to appreciate it.
Right. So then looking at age limits there, but just now looking at the age of people, John Hoeven, 67, Kevin Kirby, 63, which actually young. Obviously Hoeven is getting close to 70, 80 is, neither of these would affect him. And so I'm looking at I didn't go through all the senators and all the representatives in North Dakota. That would have been a piece of homework right there. But the point is, do you feel like there is a concern at all for leadership, strong leaders, people that can lead the districts in North Dakota and even eventually step into those national positions, such as being our state representative or our state senators? Do you feel like there's a gap at all in the Republican Party right now? A call for that strong leadership.
So maybe what you're like, even a shortage of people,
Yep.
And maybe some of these measures are going to create more of a shortage. Is that where you're going
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Because yes, I can see the concern. I'm from Western North Dakota, and my family, my mom's family and my husband's family are from McKenzie County. Rural North Dakota is going to struggle with some of these. We'll have to see how the term limit, how this pans out,
right.
and see what the legislature is left with,
Mm-hmm.
because there is a real concern with losing institutional knowledge too soon. Hey, I would rather, have somebody who's been in there and understands the processes. Is a good Republican, solid Republican, of course, but understands the processes. We're going to term them out almost too soon.
Right.
I'm absolutely concerned about that. How is that going to leave our state, and in what condition?
So do you see the potential then? You mentioned how you do not like outsiders, such as the bureaucracies, whatever, that are going and getting these limits in place. Maybe not specifically getting them in place, but funding them, pushing them, things like that. Do you see more of those popping up with less experience in the legislature in the state, trying to get more stuff pushed through the North Dakota legislature that way? Is it potential? I've heard that the term limits is going to create more bureaucracy, and I know that will come a lot internally in the state, but do you see that also maybe exposing us to external bureaucracy as well, filtering into the state because of less experience?
Oh yes, absolutely. We're going to have we're guessing. Come on. This is the deal. Individuals, we're a small state. Not everybody wants to play a large role in politics.
Right.
You live in a small community. It's really asking everybody to step up. It's your turn.
Yeah.
That's just not how it is.
Right.
There are individuals that are gifted, and it is their skill set, it's their heart, it's their mind. We want people that are servant leaders.
Right.
We want people with integrity. We don't want people that, it's my time, it's my, it's my turn. And another thing in the state of North Dakota is they come into legislature every 2 years, right? We're not a full time.
Yep.
And so they're every 2 years and they give 80 to 90 days. I mean, who can do that? Who is going to be able to step away? Hey, if you're a farmer and you're living in rural North Dakota and that's where you're supposed to be planting, good luck with that. How are we going to work this out?
Right.
And who are you going to send? I mean, who are you going to send? You're going to have to pick your kid, as an adult. I mean, this is going to be, we are going to see some unintended consequences from some of these measures.
From an outside perspective, and I said I wasn't going to go and jump back into this discussion, but it opens the door for against the Republican Party for the Democrats to be able to have a stronger foothold in the state.
Sure, we just went full circle right there. I think
we did.
And now
you're going to slap me.
Well, no. Actually, now I think I might. I'm having to eat my words a little bit, as our discussion has really gone full circle. Yeah, absolutely. It does leave a little bit of a gap. But again, we got to get back to the Democrats, the party itself, and I do. Okay, let's talk about the Republican Party. I mean, the platform is large. Not everybody agrees on everything.
Right.
In regards to that's why we have many factions.
Yeah.
And of course, we have the far right factions that believe in certain areas, and then you've got the middle, and then you've got the left. We really don't have to agree on absolutely everything in order to be a Republican. So if we can at least be here and say, okay, I'm going to give you those two. I mean, we're not going to hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can still all be in the Republican Party. But we have to be a little bit kinder to our family and friends in the Republican Party and stop hitting them over the head with a bat and saying, you don't belong here, because there's two on here that I hold dear to my heart, and you haven't aligned, so you're not a Republican.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that has to cease at some point.
Right.
Because that's the fear right there, is we're going to drive somebody that doesn't follow that platform 300% to the other side. Mm-hmm. But my point is, do you really want to go to the other side when they're that extreme?
Yeah. Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. That would be a difficult choice to make.
It really would.
It'll be interesting though to see, because we'll need strong people to step up. North Dakota needs strong people to step up across the party.
They do.
We saw some of that infighting in the primary season, and we saw it on. And I asked you this question on primary day, but I'm gonna go back to it. There was a text message that got sent out on primary day, and it was a little bit misleading, as though Julie Fedorchak had stepped out of the race.
Yeah.
And some people received it on even the same thread that they had received other text messages from other politicians that were Republican in the state. So it came from the same number. A lot of speculation that surrounds that. As you guys have, I don't know if there's much investigation or many questions that have been asked. I'm sure there's many questions that have been asked. Sure. I'm not sure what all's gone on, but and I know you addressed it a little bit, but I want to hear it again. What's your thoughts on that? And have you are you to the bottom of it? Do you know what happened there or anything like that?
Gosh, I would like to revisit that from the primary to hear what I said on that day. Actually, that would
said you didn't like it, that you were not a fan of it, and you wanted more. We talk about parties and stuff like that, but we need candidates of integrity.
Oh,
and
that's
stuff like
okay. That. Well, I still feel that way.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I will tell you, number one, that's the first time I am hearing that you said it was the same text number.
I believe so.
Okay, so
I saw a screenshot of that.
Okay, so that's the first time I'm hearing that. I will tell you, the ND GOP and the party itself, the organization, we are not the body that is going to investigate. We're just right.
Yep, right.
If there's something that has been done, we can consider the ethics of something, but the legality of something. From what I know, is this is being investigated.
Yeah.
Because it's a serious serious deal. It's a serious accusation.
Right.
And from what I understand, the Fedorchak campaign moved forward, and it wasn't them. It was law
Yeah.
Probably,
Gets turned over there. Yeah.
Federal.
Right. Yeah. That's well, if there's a third, we'll see what happens if it was a third party, if it was a PAC or something like that did it. But if it was legitimately another campaign that did it, then
right.
That would not be a good thing.
I mean, this is so serious. I mean, this is the race for Congress. This is a federal race. This affects our nation,
right?
And the security of you get good lawmakers. It's the security of our nation. I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
So as chair, how does that make you? I'll use the word feel, but what does that make you, inspire you to action to implement it, or anything?
Well, again, I think we talked, just briefly ran over it. I think we need to be educating, not just lawmakers, but activists. I mean, we need to be doing a better job at ND GOP of education, the 101 of the congressional races versus the state races.
Yep.
I mean, this affects what's, FEC compliance measures.
Right.
And it's a serious deal. We deal with it, as we get ready for nationals.
Yeah.
And we're dealing with the FEC, and we're looking I have an FEC compliance officer, who we connect with him once a month to make sure that we are checked and balanced and walking in the right right direction.
Right.
I mean, it is very serious.
Yeah. Very interesting there. Overall primary day, how'd you feel like it went?
Well, I was just talking to a district chair on my drive up here. It was, I think we had a nice turnout. We had around 119,000 North Dakotans that came out to vote on the primary. I think we heard them.
Yeah.
I that was loud and clear.
Right.
We had some incumbents that were not necessarily the endorsed candidates within their districts. We did see going into the primary, we always talk about in the Republican Party integrity.
Yeah. Right.
And I believe that we saw a lack of campaign integrity, even just based on that text.
Yeah.
That is a lack of campaign integrity going into that primary. And so we clearly did see that. And I'll tell you what, it wasn't one team against all the teams were doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can't say it was just this group. It was everybody was doing it.
Yeah.
And so we did see that. And what I appreciated is the North Dakotans that sat quietly in the middle. They just put all that noise aside, and they went to the ballot booth and they voted for the individual that they trusted and knew and wanted.
Yeah.
And that's what I do know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very interesting. It was an interesting day for sure. I know that text, I think there's at least one person I know that text influenced, probably others, but it's interesting to see how it goes. But it goes back to that integrity, and it's good that people were able to cast out the noise and focus on what matters that day. Now, you were able to go to your first Republican National Convention as a chairperson.
That is true.
That part, I had to get to the end part because I don't know if it's in general.
Well, no, it's in general as well. It's in general as well.
How is that?
Well, it is in general but I was a delegate in 2020, but then we canceled life and the world and everything else that came with it. Right. So, okay. So
isn't it crazy? Okay. I interrupt you.
Yeah.
But isn't it crazy how in 2020, there was this thing called a Summer Olympics. And I believe it got pushed to 2021. Yeah. Because of COVID. Yeah. And now fast forward 3 years and there's Olympic athletes that are competing with COVID.
I know. I know. Can you, I know. I can't even believe that it's been 4 years. And in fact, just talking about it,
it's crazy.
I get a little, it just, there's a little irritant there.
Yeah.
There's a little irritant, but yeah, I mean, we counseled life.
Yeah, we did.
And actually, I'll tell you, let's just stay back in 2020 for 2 seconds, please. Yeah. If you would have told me a month before COVID hit, if you would have told me a month before it hit North Dakota and we were going to shut down the world and we're going to do this 2 weeks slow the spread, if you would have told me that I couldn't go to work, to, make the American dollar move,
right.
To go buy food for my family to put food on the table. Yeah. I would have told you you're crazy.
Right.
I felt like for some reason it was not going to touch North Dakota. Yeah. Or because we're too in the middle. Yeah. Just like,
right.
And I was so wrong. I mean, whatever happened was global. Nobody was exempt from the perversion of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I hope to God we never revisit that again. And I hope to God that, lawmakers, if they were on the wrong side of that, I hope they look back
Right.
to, that 4 years and go, you know what, I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah.
Because now we know more.
Absolutely.
And we
Absolutely.
know more. Let's do better.
Better be changed.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, weren't able to go to that convention, but
Yeah.
you were able to go to the 2024 convention.
Yeah, I was.
And obviously, as a chair, that has to be completely different experience as well.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, it was a job. It was
Okay.
a big job for me. And, of course, we had a delegation of 29. And then we had guests of those 29, and we had some additional, people that came with. So we had around, I don't know if it's 65 or 67. It was kind of a moving number.
Yeah.
That were there on behalf of the state of North Dakota. It was a great experience. I feel honored that I could represent the state of North Dakota and be the chair at that event, as a chairwoman of ND GOP. But it's a job.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had a lot of work to do. My staff had a lot of work to do, and we took it really seriously. There was a week of work that was done, going a week before the Nationals, there was an RNC meeting.
Right.
And so we prepared for Nationals.
Okay.
And so during that week prior, there were some committee meetings. Some of our delegates were part of those smaller committees. There was platform and rules. And they had the opportunity to do some good work going into Nationals.
Yep.
But it was a long 2 weeks.
It was a long 2 weeks. I'm sure.
Weeks. Yeah.
Looking forward to the next one.
The next national, if I attend,
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be the chair.
Oh, really?
I don't know. That's 4 years from now. I can't imagine. But I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
It's got to be a lot of stress being the chair.
It is not a lot of stress.
You don't get phone calls from district chairs and stuff like that many times a week complaining about this or encouraging you to take action here or do stuff like that?
Yeah, okay, I'm going to tell you something. We have built the best team at the GOP.
Okay.
I have a wonderful executive director in Andrew
he's awesome.
Nias. I have a wonderful operations manager in Derek Turbide. I have communication, Ellie, and then we do some subcontracts. We've got a few, people helping with some other, we have a wonderful team.
Yeah.
And so fielding some of those grievances would be my executive director and my operation manager. And we deal with issues every single day. I am a full-time chairwoman.
Okay.
And I've backed off a little bit this summer just to get my daughter married, and to prepare for nationals. But as the kids have gone back to school, I see myself back, in the full-time role.
Right.
But I want my staff to be able to do their job, and I want to build them up, and they have autonomy and authority, and I'm not going to micromanage. But I will tell you, it is kind of all hands on deck,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not stressed out. I'm
Wow.
not stressed out from it. And there has been, there's been a lot of narratives and, a lot of hits that have come directly, impacted me.
Yep.
But I'm not stressed over it.
That's wow.
I am not stressed.
Good.
No.
Yeah, I like talking with Andrew about some of those narratives and stuff like that. He's always got a good perspective on it all. And deflecting them, bringing them back to reality is what I mean by deflecting them.
Yes.
Like, let's actually look at this.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, I'm very pragmatic, and I'm really not offended or easily offended
Mm-hmm.
by the attacks that are personal on me. I mean, in fact, people have said if the Fargo Forum is making I've had a cartoon on a few. I mean,
Sweet.
Yeah.
You're famous.
Well, no,
You have your own
maybe,
cartoon.
but we've struck a chord. We've definitely struck a chord, but I'm not offended. And what we're seeing, some of the grievances, of course, it's people that are, they're hurt and they're
Mhm.
scared.
Yeah.
They weren't happy with new leadership. It felt a little unbalanced to them. They weren't sure where new leadership was going to go. They weren't sure about me.
Yeah.
And I empathize with somebody who didn't trust me to do good work. But I think after 13, 14 months, I think that, I've walked through, I've jumped the hurdles. I've walked through, some fiery scenarios, and I wasn't stressed.
Yeah. Yeah, you've walked through some.
I wasn't stressed. I mean, you really just do your job and keep your head up. And I've had to understand my own capability and not take offense to people's fears or anxiety or hurts.
Yeah.
Because that's what's really driving this is that.
Yeah. So, and I don't want to go into the specifics of it, but not very long into the job, your executive director stepped down.
Yes.
And one of the comments that you made on that was, I think it was essentially directly to him,
Yes.
was you done it, you get to go own up for it. And it seems like that kind of perspective is probably something that makes it where you're able to sleep a little better at night, where I understand that there's the overall pressure of the Republican Party, and we talked about image and stuff like that, that probably ends up on your shoulders. But at the end of the day, understanding that I'm not responsible for the actions of everybody within this party.
I'm not.
And I think that's where the stress comes, is somebody went and tried to act like it's it's them or die. And honestly, it probably also gives the best opportunity for growth, because growth, while you're leading the way and pointing it in the direction that it needs to go,
Right.
it's the people that are going to get it there, and
Right.
understanding that.
Yeah. I'm not responsible for every person within the Republican Party. In order to take on that kind of responsibility, I would have to overpower them. That would be somebody who's trying to gain power.
Yeah.
Okay. That is not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
People, again, and that's not who the Republican Party is. I mean, we have to make our own decisions, and
Right.
that's part of our platform.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it doesn't weigh on me. It really doesn't.
Very interesting. So looking ahead 5 years,
Yeah.
and I not whether or not you're going to run, but just looking in that direction of the growth, the future of the Republican Party. Obviously, there's some challenges that are ahead, and there's bright spots, and you get to address both of those. But school, that's something that it seems like it's coming up. You're seeing people getting very frustrated with schools. There's probably last legislative session there was legislative measures that were taken about some things, and I'm sure that there'll be more this year, whether it's about gender issues, whether it's about books, whatever it might be. It seems like there's a lot of things that are going on. And it was an interesting discussion that we had beforehand, the homeschooling and how that all incorporates together.
Yeah.
You have that you're going to have the term limits, which is an interesting problem. We've addressed some of the problems with that, getting more people to run, things like that, potentially age limits, so that might not happen. Perhaps even marijuana makes it through and becomes legal in the state. That's another issue. Sure. But as you look at the Republican Party and you look at the future of it, is this the Republican Party has had the supermajority for a long time now, and so we need to start getting nervous that maybe we're going to lose that power that has been held there, or is this something where there's a bright future still?
Oh, I think there's a bright future with the Republican Party, and I can look at the state issues, and I have to remember, I am part of what's called the RNC, the 168 that make up nationals, and I'm very aware that some of the things that we're seeing in the state of North Dakota, it's nationwide.
Wow.
Okay, so this is not isolated to the state of North Dakota. We're not that unique.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the healing that needs to take place within our Republican Party is nationwide.
Yeah.
So we have to be really clear there. I think North Dakota has the capability to come together. When I look at across the nation, I mean, we are a state. I mean, we're practical. We're practical people, and we love the state. We love the simplicity of it. We're good neighbors. We don't have to agree all the time. I think we need to get back to that. So I see really wonderful things in the state of North Dakota. So I'm really encouraged. I am.
But and you already kind of answered it. 5 years from now, you might not be the chair anymore.
Well, it's just so hard to just jump ahead.
Yeah,
even,
I know. You're in the middle of elections right now. It's a big time right.
Yeah,
That's where the focus needs to be.
Yeah, and I'm thinking 5 years from now. I mean, I'm a mom, and and I'm a wife, and I would be almost 60. So oh my gosh, I might age out. I might not make it. Make the cognitive test, but I will tell you, I feel really good about the work that we're doing at the GOP.
Right.
I will tell you this. I will promise. I'm going to leave the organization stronger than when I came in. That is a promise. And so no doubt, that's something that's just my goal. And, I'm kind of going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And in the
awesome.
in the right direction.
That's what matters.
So, and I will always be part of this party and be on the right side of things for the state of North Dakota.
Well, it's been a good time. You want to end with some rapid fire questions?
Okay. Oh man. Okay, go. Wait, let me take a sip.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Is this a test?
Oh, they're so controversial. You won't know how to answer them.
Oh dear. Okay.
Morning person or a night owl?
Morning. I went, sorry.
No,
That
you're
was very North
fine.
Dakotan.
Yeah. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Okay.
Well,
that's,
you know what?
That's a hard one, honestly.
It is really hard because I am I'm Norwegian. I love winter and I love winter walks and winter doesn't scare me. Are you kidding me?
Right, yeah.
No.
But the beautiful sunsets of the summers are incredible.
Yeah.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Okay. See, that one creates a conflict.
Yeah, because it's also Thanksgiving. My birthday's in November.
Okay.
And I love the fall.
Right.
Thanksgiving and Christmas are just too darn close together.
yeah, they are.
So,
beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Okay. So you lived in Denver.
I did live in Denver, and actually,
That's
funny I
gotta be
even said
beautiful.
mountains and it is mountains. I love mountains, but I felt claustrophobic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I actually went to college in Bozeman,
right in the mountains.
In Montana for a while, and
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Sweet or savory?
Both.
Favorite? Come on.
Well, I know, really, truly both. Is it Dot's Pretzels? I mean,
Okay.
that's sweet and salty.
Yeah, you're fair.
So I think we finally have
Found the
conquered
balance.
The both.
Yeah.
For the girl like me. Yeah.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate mint.
Okay. Is there a certain brand?
Oh no.
Just
No.
anything chocolate mint is going to be money.
Yeah, and I'm feeling the older I get, I'm starting to just say the heck with it. I mean, ice cream. I mean, I can't get. It's horrible. It's horrible.
I love it.
Yeah, if there's ice cream, I will eat ice cream.
All right, then what's one thing you can't live without?
My husband and my
Okay.
family.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I have a couple North Dakota ones, but this one's an interesting one. It cannot be Jesus. Okay.
It cannot be Jesus.
If you could,
because I was gonna thing you can't live without. I could have said Jesus, and I just thought you'll think I'm corny.
Yeah. If you could meet any historical figure, who would it be?
Abe Lincoln.
Abe Lincoln. That would be a really great conversation.
Absolutely, because I want to go back and talk about, I really want to know the logistics of when he fought against slavery.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
The
really
challenges that he faced in his era were incredible.
Absolutely. And all the family, what he went through and all the hardships and he lost so many people that he loved.
Yeah.
And he still went on and on and on.
Did not stop.
And we have to toughen up. We have to toughen up. I mean, I think if there was one I want people to, I really want people to grow up.
Yeah, that'd be
really
good.
Do. I think it's time that we all grow up and we stop complaining and we just we step up as adults.
Yeah. So, and I've tried to keep his name out of it, but some would say this is Trump's fault. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know that that's fair. Maybe he magnified it, but there's a lot of just name calling now.
There is.
And
there is.
That it's not productive.
Not at all.
It seems like we've gone away from issues, and even somewhat in this state. I know people have their problems with the national stuff, and it's two different ball games. We don't have to emulate what goes on nationally in the state.
That's correct.
And so is that something that if you could change one thing in our rapid fire round, one thing,
yes.
How do we get rid of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lack of decorum. It's disrespectful. And it brings everybody, it brings a conversation down.
Right.
Everybody's language comes down. We really kind of are going down to this elementary kind of mindset and kind of elementary talk.
Yeah.
And I think we have to bring it up.
Right.
We have to bring it up. And I do think that Republicans and people are really, I mean, even the cultural stuff and the name calling, people are really kind of done with it.
Yeah, you can feel that.
Because why? Because they're truly having trouble making their house payment. They really can't get that car that they wanted,
Right.
3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
They're having to now buy food for their kids as they're getting, school clothes. I mean, there is a real issue with not being able to afford their groceries.
Right.
It is a real deal. The inflation has hit. Nobody's exempt from it.
Yeah.
And so people, we can scream and holler and kind of, we got to stop going back. We visited COVID for 2 seconds, but we can't go there. We're
Right.
done. We're done with that.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about today and let's look at tomorrow.
Yep.
Stop going back to yesterday. It's
Right.
over. And people are having trouble eating.
Yep.
And having enough food.
Absolutely.
And that's and why is that? That's because because of Democrats.
Yep.
And there's overreach and there's, it's too much.
People will blame. Sorry, go ahead.
Too much for the federal policies that are in place. It's just killed us all.
Yeah. Another interesting stat that somebody's pulled out was, and Trump gets blamed for the economy because it's back and forth. Who knows whose fault? Whatever. But out of the last 20 years, or 16 years of presidency, only 4 of them has been Republican.
Mm-hmm.
That's another interesting stat of state of the country.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of interesting things that we've talked about, and there's so much more that we could talk about. So we'll have to do it again sometime.
Well, and if I had a couple seconds, with President Trump, and anytime I've had, I've been able to weigh in with an elected official, at a certain federal,
Yep.
Governor, I've always told people, to include my husband, make sure that you're surrounded by people that will tell you no.
Right.
Okay. And that's what I would tell President Trump. President Trump, and it doesn't matter. President Trump, I mean, if you're an elected official and you're at that level and you're running a state or the nation for that matter, they need to have some individuals that are those checks and balance. People have to love them that much and care about them that much, or even their staffers. They need a staffer. They need a check and balance staffer that will say, no.
Right.
No. You cannot do this.
Yeah.
And maybe they still will move forward, with the language or the talk or the message, but the warning shot has to be made. And that's what I would, if I had President Trump for 15 minutes.
That's what you tell him.
I would tell him no a few times.
That's a great principle that every politician, not politician, every leader should gain right there.
Well, my husband was lieutenant governor, and then before that, he was the mayor. Hey, I'm his biggest cheerleader and his biggest critic.
Right. That's good.
Okay. I am the check and balance of him. And there are just certain times where I have drawn the line in the sand.
Right.
And I said, wait a minute, husband, we are going to sit down and we're going to talk about this. And this is an absolute no.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you.
I have one last question.
One more.
This is my favorite question.
Yeah, what?
Best place to eat in North Dakota?
Best place to eat in North Dakota? Oh, my goodness. In Bismarck. There's a little place called the Walrus. I'm gonna give you 2 places. There's a little place called the Walrus, and it's owned and operated by a second cousin of Brent's, Jill Sanford. But there's another place that's right on the river, in Bismarck, and it's called the Huckleberry. Huckleberry House.
Interesting.
And it's only been there for a few years, and it is very Scandinavian. And
interesting.
It's the boat, the boat river, Missouri River boat is right outside there. And I go there and I don't know, I almost feel like I'm in, a different country just
Wow.
for, not in a different country, on the North Dakota, Bismarck, North Dakota on the river. And I don't know, I appreciate the food, but I grew up in a Norwegian home. Yeah. And then my dad was English, but I've had a lot of Norwegian food, and I really respect and appreciate the Scandinavian.
Very neat.
Mm-hmm.
All right, for real this time. Thanks for coming on today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It's been a good time.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Conversation here at the Dakotan. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, like and subscribe, become part of the Dakotan community where we'll continue to have great conversations just like the one we just had. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.